Hey, welcome to the Insane Asylum. Mark's not here. He's playing boss man tonight and got stuck at work. But we're here with Dale Kazmarek, probably one of our guests that's been on here more times than anybody else. One of our favorites. So, Dale, you just got back from what I can see was one hell of a fun trip into California.
Yeah, I mean, we went a ton of places. We were supposed to have somebody helping us out the first couple of days, but um, she got sick, was in the hospital. So I had a partner with me who was my Indiana State coordinator, Chuck Williams. So we rented out a car for the 5 days, and we kind of had an itinerary already planned. So we went to a ton of places. I mean, we started with 3 days in San Diego, especially one of my favorite spots was the Old Town San Diego. So it's like a small village basically. It's about a city block, maybe a little longer, like
Wow.
in a big square. And it literally is a fountain or something in the center, and all these buildings, which are basically the original buildings are still there. The Cosmopolitan Hotel, the very first courthouse, the Robinson Rose House, the Casa de Estudillo. There you go. And several others that were really interesting. I was able to take a like an hour and a half free tour with a guide. They had about maybe 10 people with us, and he told us the history. We were able to get in a couple of buildings that were the normal public can't get into because he's got the keys, which was kind of cool. So we took that tour. Most of those buildings in there basically are haunted. I picked up a book in San Diego down in an area called Haunted Houses in Old Town San Diego, and it actually has a map that you can go from building to building, and they kind of tell you the history and the haunting. So we were able to get into several buildings. There was an old restaurant called El Fandango, which unfortunately is no longer there. There just a ton of places. I mean, it was one of my favorite spots in San Diego. So
Yeah, I gotta admit, I'm currently also looking again because I was watching as you were posting the pictures, doing some of your lives from there. But when you were in that here, I forgot I got the power to do this. I'm sorry, I'm a little off today because I did another show just before this.
oh, that's okay.
What is that? What I think it is? Is that like a jail cell outside?
Yeah, that's the original one of the original jail cells from the Whaley House in San Diego. It's probably one of the most haunted houses in California. It's one of two houses that's actually certified by the state of California to be haunted, which is very unusual for a state to make that kind of a statement. And I was one side was actually open, so you could actually walk in there and kind of get a picture of yourself in the jail. But they used to hang people right on the property at one time. There's a courthouse which was there during the time of the
So
Thomas Whaley, and it's
what
still there today. They actually use it
was
as a
this
courthouse.
cell inside of a building at one time?
Um, I'm not 100% sure. I
Or
mean,
did they incarcerate the people so that they were outdoors and kind of what looks like they'd be almost be on public display?
yeah, that could have been more of a holding cell for criminals or people that had a court case, and they initially put him in there, and then maybe they were brought in by a sheriff or something like that to the judge, so that he could hear the case and determine the guilt or innocence at that point.
Wow. That wow. That's
Yeah,
just
that's
amazing.
similar to places I actually saw when I was in England. They had places that had outdoor facilities like that too, that maybe you could hold maybe 2 or 3 people at most, and that was pretty crowded in there. And I think at some of those places they were put on public display as a way to ridicule them.
In those places, like, you got pictures up here of the courthouse, and you know that it kind of bothers me when you tour me personally, it kind of creeps me out a little bit when you see like a wax dummy or a mannequin posed at a desk or something in these old buildings like this. And I mean, that happens quite a bit. I mean, not just obviously in your pictures. How do you feel about that? Does that creep you out when they do that?
I hate mannequins, literally. I can't tell you how many places that I've been to where there were mannequins. The Octagon House down in Kentucky, the USS North Carolina in obviously North Carolina, and many other locations where we took the tour during the daytime, and obviously it was light out. We went through, and I knew where all these mannequins were. And then when they turned those damn lights out, I'd be walking past the corridor, and all of a sudden I would jump, and I go, oh, it's just a mannequin. I hate mannequins. I really do. I mean, they serve a purpose basically, but when you're doing a nighttime investigation, it can creep you out. Literally can.
Yeah, that was really, that would creep me out too. So what else? Where else did you go after that?
Well, we went all through San Diego. I mean, we spent 3 days in San Diego. We went to the Whaley House was one place I always wanted to see. I've never been to San Diego. I've been to L.A. I've been to Burbank. I've been to San Jose. I've been to parts of San Francisco, but never had been to San Diego before. So we flew into San Diego, and then we flew out of LAX. So we saw some places. It's like some old Spanish missions. There was one called San Juan de Capistrano, where the very famous reports of these swallows that come back every year when the swallows return to Capistrano. It's actually a song about that. And unfortunately, because of all the people that go through the outside, there's beautiful gardens and everything, they've kind of scared a lot of those swallows away. So they kind of nest in people's homes on either side. The people aren't too happy about that because their gutters are littered with a bird's nest. But there's one portion in there. There's actually a report of a headless ghost, and there's actually a part of an old chapel, which is kind of in ruins. And we did an EVP session over there. In fact, I think we did a live Facebook over there. And one of the stories is that a little young girl, her face peers out of one of the windows, and this is due to part of an earthquake that happened back in 1812 during the War of 1812, and that's why some of the building is in ruins today. And it's a possibility she might have been killed in that earthquake, and now she peers out of the windows. Of course, we didn't see anything. I haven't had a chance yet to go through any of the EVPs. That was just before the show. I was converting them into MP3 files, but yeah, I mean that was interesting. There was a lot of other Spanish missions, but they're further north. So if we make another trip, which I'm planning to maybe in the future, I'd like to go to La Parisma, Olivos Adobe, Preston Castle. I've been to the Golden Gate Bridge, but I'd like to see it again. And of course, Alcatraz. I've never been to Alcatraz before.
That would be something else. That's like on my bucket list as well. I mean, not only from a paranormal perspective, but I'm one of these like crime type buffs, unsolved mystery buffs, and I'm really curious about Alcatraz and those guys that escaped and how they did it.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me it would be like a double reason to go. So it would, yeah, it's high on my. I got told once though that it was off limits. You couldn't go out there anymore.
No, they actually, it's part of the National Park Service now. They take you on a little ferry or something, and they take you out there. And of course, Al Capone spent some time on the Rock too, as well.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I'm big into the mafia and stuff, and prohibition and all that history. you know, and Alcatraz would be a thrill for me to go to. You know,
Yeah.
I I I'm not big on wanting to go to California, but that would be a reason to go.
Yeah.
You know, um, I'm just not big on any state that's not close to Wisconsin. You know, going to Las Vegas was a dream because I'm a big gambler. I love to play poker. You know,
Okay.
I grew up playing poker. You know, it was in my family. We did it every family reunion. You know, but I've got a lot of places on my bucket list, but it seems most of them are like East Coast.
Yeah.
You know, but that's the biggest one that's closest to the top of my list is Alcatraz
Yeah.
for many reasons.
Yeah, I mean, we when we initially had planned this trip, we had planned to do both the south side of the state and the north side of the state. But as you know, California is a very long state. I
And
mean,
very large, massive.
it's the third biggest state in the union behind Texas and Alaska, and so we decided to like make do the south portion of the state on this trip, and then if we were to come back, make do the northern portion. But
Might have to do that in 3 or 4 trips. You know,
yeah, oh yeah, very
it's,
easy.
it's I mean, I noticed you in what? How long were you gone? About a week.
About 5 days. Yeah,
So
about
about a
almost.
week.
Yeah. Hmm.
So, and you crammed an awful lot of sightseeing or, investigations into such a short period of time. Boy, you must have been real tuckered out, needed a vacation from your vacation.
Yeah, I was kind of tuckered out after every day. I mean, I went to hit that pillow and I was literally out. But I tell you what, we were able to do an EVP session in the Whaley House because uh, they they give you a kind of quick little 5 minute tour of the grounds, including that little jail cell, and a little bit on the inside. And then after that, it's a self guided tour. You're able to go through on your own. So we went into one of the most haunted parts of the Whaley House, which is upstairs in the theater. And the theater, they hear piano music playing. They see people on stage. They see a little young girl sitting in the seats, which are basically benches. And as we're walking up there, me and my buddy, all of a sudden we started hearing piano music. I go, you hear that? There's piano music up there. And we go up there. There's an actual piano playing music they were playing some old silent movies, and the silent movies always had piano music in the background.
Right.
Like Charlie Chaplin and all those.
They had the words show up
Right.
Right.
So I mean, it was kind of cool. We did an EVP session, kind of over the drone of the piano music, which I think actually might have acted as a trigger object. So I haven't had a chance to review that yet, but we were able to do something in the Whaley House, which I thought was pretty cool. And you also hear what sounds like pool balls clacking together, and there used to be a pool table. And, they said it was downstairs, somewhere where the courthouse is today. And I seem to remember, I had to check in the mind notes, I seem to remember it was upstairs. So maybe somebody got it wrong, or maybe I'm wrong, but that's one of the sounds that people hear.
That's a pretty distinctive sound, those balls hitting each other,
Absolutely.
And anybody that has played pool, such as myself, you probably, I would imagine, would know exactly what that sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was also a person that was named Yankee Jim. That's kind of a nickname that he had. And he was, convicted of, something, I don't know what it was, but he was sentenced to death. And back then they hung everybody in gallows. So he went out there and they, put the noose around his neck, and they went to hang him, but the rope was too long, and he didn't snap his neck. He just kind of dangled there and choked to death. And they think that's one of the apparitions that people sometimes see in the Whaley House. That was one of my the highlights of the trip. That in Old Town San Diego, I think. Of course, the Queen Mary I also went in too. The Queen Mary was one of the places I wanted to go for a long time. Not only it served as a passenger ship, but then later on during the war, it served as a ship to help bring troops over back and forth to Europe during World War II. And I met my California state coordinator at that time, Nicole Strickland, and she showed us around. We actually took what's called the Paranormal Ship Walk. It's a 2-hour trip, walking tour throughout the building, the ship, and saw a lot of the hot spots, including what they call Shaft Alley, which they had watertight doors, which is door number 13, by the way, which is kind of unlucky. And apparently what had happened is they either were doing a test or something, and the door was closing, and the guy got crushed in this several ton solid steel, bulkhead door. And they say sometimes they hear, sounds in there. Sometimes they think they hear something like banging on the wall, like they're trying to get help. The highlight for me of that trip was the first class pool, which nobody goes into except on this particular tour. Even my friend Nicole, who's wrote like 4 or 5 books on the Queen Mary, she can't get access to it. But we got access to it, and it's an old first class pool. It's not used anymore. And there's a report of a young girl named Jackie that people have heard up there. And I actually have a video way back when sightings used to be on the air. And I was on sightings a couple times myself.
That's one hell of a ship.
Absolutely. And Peter James, who at that time was that's the captain's area where they steer the ship. And he was a psychic, and he went there, and he actually called for Jackie, and you hear this little female voice, oh, hello, like that coming through. It was really cool. So we did a quick little, put my digital recorder on, and just let it run. We were very, very quiet. We'll have to see if anything comes through. But, that was an area I've always wanted to see.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. I mean, that's a part of history for sure, but boy, they sure did keep it, pretty well preserved over the years.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing about it too, we actually stayed on the ship. We actually
really?
Yeah, we actually had 2 twin beds in a port side. You actually look out the port holes and everything, and it's like where we were at, I swear it was like a 60-foot drop or more to the ocean. That's how high up we were.
Wow.
And so you could actually walk through the whole ship yourself. There were a lot of places that were not off limits, like the propeller room, the engine room, and all that stuff. And some of those rooms were the most haunted rooms. So you could go out there any time of the day or night. Those places were open, and you could do your own little investigations because they had nobody there to walk you around. So we actually tried something in Shaft Alley. We tried something somewhere else in the ship. So we'll have to see if anything shows up. Now I will tell you, when we were in Shaft Alley, they don't turn the lights off, unfortunately. So it's always light in there, so people don't fall or anything. So we really couldn't use any of our night shot cameras in there. But I swear that when I turned around to look back down Shaft Alley, I saw a shadow figure that was down there.
Really?
There was nobody else in that area but us. There was just 3 people in that Shaft Alley, and you would hear somebody coming down the metal stairs because you would hear clank, 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 clank coming down, and there was nobody. And it was just very briefly. It kind of looked like this, kind of like somebody went,
wow,
kind of peered around and was gone. And I immediately said, I think I saw a shadow person down there. Unfortunately, I wasn't recording or anything, so it's just my own experience. But it wouldn't be uncommon to have things like that happen there because there were many deaths on that ship. It actually ran into a ship called the Carousel, if I remember correctly. That might be the name of it, and it was like a companion ship. And the Queen Mary basically is one of the largest ships ever built. You could put the Titanic in the Queen Mary and you still have room. That's how big the ship was. and it actually hit the Curacao, and it cut the Curacao in half. It literally cut it in half, and that ship sank within like 5 minutes. It was gone, and because it was during wartime, they really couldn't stop, because what they were doing, they were zigzagging to try to avoid the U-boats and everything. So they just kept on, and all those people died that were struck by the Queen Mary. And the Queen Mary did have some damage to the front, I think the front of the ship, you call it the aft, I believe, and they did take on a little bit of water, but nobody was killed on the Queen Mary. But it's had some significant things in the past that may have also, made it a very haunted ship. Just though all those people that it killed, not purposely, but it just happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a blast in that ship, literally. We went. I'll tell you something really funny. Bear with me for a second. I was actually. I had my video camera, which is a 4K, and I was kind of like going around and I was videotaping. The guide says she didn't mind me videotaping or anybody, just don't film her. So I had to kind of point it away from her, and I was just kind of like zooming around, and there were these 4 or 5 women, very young girls, maybe I would say in their 20s or early 30s. And I think they were all either Polish or Ukrainian or Russian. They had a very heavy, Eastern European accent. And when I was kind of videotaping it, around, one of them came up to me and said, "Are you trying to capture ghosts with that?" I said, "Yeah, because I'm a ghost researcher." So I had my shirt on with my emblem, and I kind of like, had a jacket over it, so I kind of moved my jacket so they would see the emblem. And they literally went crazy. "Oh my God." I go, "Great, can I take a picture with you?" And they're all coming up. They're trying to take pictures with me. And then I said, "Well, I got a business card." Everybody wanted a business card. I mean, it's just it was so cool. It was surreal. And I'll tell you something, which I have nothing against anybody for being, any way they want to be. But those 2 women that initially wanted to take a picture when they were lesbians, and they were kissing and smooching, and I don't care what people do, really. But it was so cool that happened, just kind of spontaneous, and I didn't expect to get that kind of a reaction. And then everybody in the tour kind of like was talking to me for a little bit and so forth.
You've been doing this since 1974, and you don't get those reactions?
Well, I don't get those.
Find out what you do.
Yeah, but usually when I'm doing it, like I'm there and people know about it. I guess they didn't know that me and my friend Chuck were both paranormal investigators. And even Nicole Strickland, who was with us, was also a paranormal investigator too. She's my California state coordinator, and Chuck is my Indiana state coordinator. So, I mean, I don't think I've ever got that vivid of a reaction. Usually, people say, "Oh my God, can I get a picture, maybe, or can I get a business card?" And that's it. I mean, they hung with me for the rest of the trip. That was
wow.
Saying, "Are you capturing anything?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I'll have to review it later." So I don't know. I don't know if this is going to go on Facebook somewhere. I mean, if they're even on Facebook. I mean, I don't know if I would ever see it. I kind of wish that Chuck would have taken a picture of them taking a picture with me, because I mean, they were just bubbling with enthusiasm. It was crazy.
You gotta love that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we went into like almost every portion of the ship. We went all the way down to the propeller, and the propellers, I mean, you'd be surprised how huge those propellers are to propel that ship. Because that ship went about 33 knots or something, which is like almost, well, I don't know the conversion, but, it's one of the fastest ships around. And then, we went into we went all the way up to the very top, and I'm not kind of person that doesn't really care for heights. I'm not a person that you get up really high. I don't really like that. So here's Dale kind of hugging the ship and not getting anywhere close to the rail because I don't want to be falling overboard or something. But we went all the way to the very top, and you showed that picture earlier of the kind of the I guess you'd call it the bridge, where the captain was and the steering was, and the navigation, and they would say, they go ding ding, what speed they wanted, and it was that went down to the engine room, and they increased the speed or reversed engines or whatever. But I mean, we literally went all over. We went to this big giant, almost like a banquet room.
Yeah, there's big guns too.
Yeah, there you go. And that banquet room was supposed to be haunted too. I mean, because they have mirrors on both sides. And you know what happens when you get a mirror facing a mirror? Some people say it's kind of like creates a vortex or something. Yeah, I mean, there's the room we were in, the big room I'm just talking about. And there's mirrors on both walls. And when you look at a mirror, reflecting in a mirror, you kind of see a mirror.
Yeah, it's like a vortex.
It goes on forever. Yeah, and some people say creates a vortex. There's my friend Chuck. You can see how big this room is. They have they would have like performances on that stage, and they'd have chairs set up, or they would have a banquet or something. It's just a huge.
This whole area is more like a dance floor.
Yeah, absolutely. So they use it for various purposes, throughout the years. But there's a fireplace right there. See, we're part of that tour. You can see other people in there.
I don't know how well people can see this here, but that's pretty intricate artwork on there. There's like unicorns.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. Wow, that's very detailed too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we went into the chart room with the navigation. They would navigate and they would chart, the courses and all that. And I mean, it even though we spent 2 hours on that tour, then we had some time before that, we didn't see we saw so little of the ship. I mean, I don't know how many rooms there are, but I mean, there's a lot of rooms inside there. And I even took some pictures of the room to kind of show what the room looked like. And it wasn't a cheap looking room, and it like had very highly polished paneling. It was kind of a bit more expensive than like the old plain drab hotel rooms that just basically have just kind of like almost like drywall on the walls or something.
Right.
Like that. So I mean, they had rooms like that as well that weren't that much cheaper. So my friend said, well, let's just get the better room. I said, it's only like one time we're going to probably be here, unless we ever go back again. I mean, if we could ever go back there and be able to do a thorough investigation, I would jump on a plane and in a blink of an eye and be over there, because as you know, I'm retired, so I have that I'm able to just travel whenever I want to travel, pretty much, which is really kind of cool. But besides that ship, we actually went into San Diego Harbor, and there we actually took a trip. One time we visited. We had an opportunity to visit 7 ships for like $18, which wasn't that bad. I think I got it for 15 because I'm a senior. And they had the Star of India, they had the USS Berkeley, and they had I'm looking at my notes here. They had they had basically they had like they had an old submarine. Unfortunately, you couldn't go in the submarine. I would be kind of claustrophobic anyway. But they had something that looked like an old pirate ship. If you remember the pirate ships, they used to have the gun ports sticking out on both sides with the little trap doors, and they had the cannons sticking out. And you could go into any one of these ships. You wanted to spend as much time as you wanted, but we couldn't spend a lot of time because we had so many places to see. So we wanted to go see the USS Midway, which is an aircraft carrier that was very instrumental during World War II. And I kind of got turned off because as soon as we came into the parking lot, they charge you $20 to park a car.
Yeah, I saw that post.
And then they wanted to charge you $34 for the the chance to go in and look around. It'll be $54. I mean, I'm not broke, but I mean, I thought that was a lot, and we didn't have that kind of time to rush through. We wouldn't have seen a lot, and so I said, well, let's just pay the $20 and just take some pictures of the ship and then leave. I mean, we could have actually parked the car someplace else and walked in and saved the parking too. I think they wanted to give me, because I was already on those other 7 ships, they were going to give me like a $5 discount. But even that was still like almost $48 or something. I thought that was a lot of money. I mean, this aircraft carrier was absolutely huge. I mean, you stand next to it, it dwarfs you. I mean, literally, all the different doors and rooms and passageways you could walk into. They had school buses full of children coming out there, and I kind of found it well. I mean, I will say it's funny, but I saw a bunch of Japanese people coming off the ship, and their descendants, obviously, or ancestors, I guess you'd call it, the ones that came before them, it's ancestors, right? So those that came before them obviously were probably somehow involved with the war, or they had sons or daughters or whatever that were in the war, and they're on an aircraft carrier that was one of the main aircraft carriers that that bombed Tokyo like crazy. It had all those planes coming out of there and bombing Tokyo. Of course, this was after Pearl Harbor. Yeah, there you go.
That's yeah.
I mean, it's just a huge, huge ship, and if we would have had more time, I probably would have done it. But I talked to my partner. I said, well, we're going to have to really rush through this because we had things to do later that day. We literally had an itinerary of what we needed to do each day, and if we didn't do it that day, we'd have to do it the next day, and would kind of back up a little bit. So we just kind of took some pictures, from the outside.
Pretty cool pictures too.
I'm sorry.
Pretty cool pictures.
They are. I mean, it's number 41. That's the name, the number of the ship, and it was the big, huge aircraft carrier. And I think there you go. I was going to say you can see a couple of the jets on there at some of the bottom. And I think these are more from I believe, if I'm not mistaken, more from the Vietnam or Korean era than they would have been from World War II, because I don't think they would have had such sophisticated jets back then. I think many of them were prop jobs. I think during World War II, like P-51 Mustangs or something like that, rather than jet engine ones. That might have been later on, like in the Korean War or Vietnam, where they had the Phantom F-4 jets that were not really good, unfortunately. The Vietnamese shot down so many of those F-4 jets and killed so many pilots. But I mean, it would have been cool to go in there. I mean, the place was haunted. That's one of the reasons we were coming there, not just to see a ship.
Right.
The Star of India, the Berkeley. The Berkeley was actually a ferry that ferried people around. And the Star of India was a kind of a 3-master schooner ship, which also had some activity in there as well. Of course, the Midway, because of the war, there were people that were killed. I think it did incur a couple of kamikaze strikes on it during the World War II when the Japanese were very desperate. They were just flying their planes in to try to take down as much as they can, knowing that they were going to die, which, I mean, I don't know if I could do that, but that was part of their way of maybe winning the war. But of course, that
was my favorite.
Yeah, that's the Star of India right there.
Right.
And, that's one of the 3 or 4 ships. There I am right there. I think that was me. There I am in the center with the red shirt. So yeah, I mean, there were a lot of older ships as part of that. You could go in there for see all these 7 ships and walk around and spend as much time as you want. But again, I mean, we had such a busy itinerary, as you mentioned earlier in the show, that we had to kind of delegate our time to so much time here, so much time there. I mean, they were very interesting. They weren't packed with people because our trip was from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So it was during the week. If it would have been a weekend, these places would have been bombed by people because of being a weekend. This being during the week, people were at work or were getting off of work, and they had to get up the next day. And so,
Well, that's the secret to those things. When I was a kid, that was the secret. When we planned a trip to Gurney, Illinois, to Great America, man, we did it during the middle of the week.
Yeah.
No lines, and the lines were like less than 15 minutes compared to an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours on the weekends.
Yeah, just for a 2-minute trip on a roller coaster or 3 minutes, you're standing out there for an hour and a half.
Right.
It's kind of crazy.
I've done that.
I have too. I did that when I went to Disneyland one day in California, and we went on Magic Mountain. We went on this one, I don't know what it was called, but they turned the lights off when you went through this tunnel, and all you see was like lines on the highway coming at you. It was really kind of creepy. And of course, we went into the haunted house, which was, being that was, into the paranormal, we had to go into this haunted house. They had holograms of things coming out of the walls. It was pretty kind of cool. But even there, we had to spend at least an hour just to get onto this roller coaster. And it was maybe, at the most, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was cool, but I mean, it barely worth the wait. And, you pay for these things. So when you go in there, you're basically, in some cases, you've already paid for all the rides, so you can ride as many times as you want. But how many hours are there in the day? Unless you got there at crack of dawn and left just as it's closing, you probably really wouldn't get much of your money's worth.
No, we always got the Twicket, as it was called, for Six Flags. Great America, or whatever you want to call it. It's been in the same spot for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
And, still, you never got everything in.
No.
You still didn't get to see anything. I'd have so much to see if I wanted, as I was sitting here, looking at your pictures today and stuff from your California trip. The more I think about it, there are a lot of places that would probably interest me. One, I mean, I know it's not paranormal, but in a way, it's something that's fascinated me for another show I do. It's about those serial killers, those cult leaders. I'd want to go to Spawn Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the house is no longer in existence or whatever. It's private property. People don't like to be bothered up there, but I'd go to Spawn Ranch.
Yeah. Well, in California, they got the very famous Menendez brothers,
right,
where they killed their family, and that's still there. I actually saw that more than almost 20 years ago to the date, when I was there for that show, The Other Side. And I went on this Graveline tour, but they normally take you in a hearse. But since I was the only person, the guy just took me in his car. They showed me a whole bunch of stuff. And then when we came this year, we tried to spend some more time there. So we saw the old Sharon Tate house. We saw.
So you can see that house?
Yeah, we got it right up to it. But from what I understand, the house that was originally there, they tore down and they built a new house.
Right.
They changed the address ever so slightly to throw people off.
Right.
But the way I look at it, it's not so much the house being haunted, it's what happened on the property.
Because it was really gruesome. Those victims, a couple of them ended up out in the yard dead because they tried to leave the house.
Yeah.
And then the one guy, the first one, was actually killed in his car trying to leave the gate. Go through the gate. When it comes to that stuff, I know a lot.
Yeah, we saw that. We saw the last apartment that Bela Lugosi lived in. He was, of course, most famously known for Dracula. His parts as Dracula. We saw the Viper Room where River Phoenix overdosed. We were able to see George Reeves' Superman's home, where he committed suicide or whatever really happened. They still don't really know for sure. I mean, we saw a lot of hotels. We went into the Cecil Hotel, which I don't remember the girl's name, but she was murdered, and she was actually found in the roof in one of the water towers. And
Wow.
she was playing the elevator game. Now, if you're not familiar with that, look it up. I don't have it in front of me, but you have to have a 10-story building, and you push certain buttons. You got to be by yourself. You go to different floors. You don't. Somebody comes in. You don't talk with them. You don't look at them. And the very last time you come out, the atmosphere is supposed to be very thick, like you kind of moving in slow motion. And there's actually a video camera in that elevator that shows this woman playing the elevator game and kind of coming out, and she's kind of going like this, like, going up through the door. Now, I don't know if she had a mental problem or what, but that's the last time they saw her. And then, weeks went by, and then I guess they were doing some maintenance up there. They found her floating up there. Now, we actually saw that. We were going to go in, but it's really that building particularly is really kind of a skid row. And they had a lot of, indigent people hanging around the front. Now, the other hotels, we couldn't even get in to see the haunted rooms, like the Hotel del Coronado. It's supposed to be haunted by a woman named Kate. I don't remember her last name, but she apparently was killed or committed suicide in room 3327. And the elevators wouldn't go up that high unless you could prove that you lived there. So we couldn't get anywhere past the lobby. We went to the Knickerbocker Hotel, the same thing. We couldn't get upstairs.
That hotel,
Hotel Roosevelt, and the same thing. We couldn't get past
that one you just mentioned that you couldn't get past there. That one reminds me of an old movie.
Okay, there you go.
That hotel reminds me of a movie that had the Christopher Reeve in it called Somewhere in Time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was actually in Upper Peninsula, Michigan, up in the Grand Hotel, which was
the movie.
Somewhere in Time was actually filmed in the Grand Hotel up there near Mackinac.
But when I saw this, that was the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, it looks very similar. It does have very good similarities to it. And the same thing with that hotel in Upper Peninsula, Michigan. Just to get into if you don't have a room, this is what I was told. I've never been there, but if you don't have a room, just to get in to look around the lobby, they charge you $10.
Oh.
Which is not a lot of money, but still, people come there because of that movie. I mean, that was one of my favorite movies with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour. It was absolutely, and of course, Christopher Plummer played, her boss. But it was a great movie, and it was sad. It was very sad.
I saw that movie many, many years ago when I worked in the video store industry. So. And yeah, I've seen it a couple of times since then.
Yeah,
Never knew it was in Michigan.
It's one place I would love to go one year. Is just get up there and drive up there.
Take pictures.
Yeah, take pictures and just kind of mingle around a little bit, because it was made very famous. It was already famous for rich people and so forth, but that movie really made it more famous because it was right on the grounds. It was in the hotel. It was in the lobby. It was in that Hall of History that apparently had that picture of Jane Seymour back in the 1900s or something. And it was such a strange movie. It's kind of like synchronicity. It's kind of like, it starts off with this old woman giving her a watch and saying, "Come back to me," and he doesn't know what's going on, and then he starts going in there and seeing this woman and becomes infatuated with her, and then finds out later on that was the old lady, because he had went back in time, and he actually he willed himself to go back in time and spend some time with her. Everything was going fine until he goes in his pocket and pulls out a Lincoln Head penny. and that reminded him of where he belongs. And he went back, and he couldn't get back, and he just basically starved himself to death. And at the very end, of course, they both end up in this tunnel of light, and in the afterlife. And he did come back to her. So it was so crazy how that movie had parts of the present mixed with the past,
Yeah.
and everything. And it's just it gave me chills. It really did. And the music was absolutely beautiful. It was Rachmaninoff's theme of the variations of Paganini. And it was absolutely beautiful music. I actually got the soundtrack from that because it was such a, I'm a big classical music buff. And that was a big part of the movie was the music.
Well, I like all kinds of music, so I mean, and that movie was just, yeah, it fascinated me. Um, I was hooked when I watched it, and some movies I can tell if I'm going to watch it within the first 5 or 10 minutes, but as I look back on it, though, it's also because he goes back in time like that. It kind of got that paranormal uh, feel to it for a movie.
Yeah.
Because there's been a lot of movies, but nothing like that since then. But, I mean, maybe the butterfly effect, but he's because they forced themselves to go back in time. They did it themselves. That's what was so brilliant about it.
Yeah. Well, he had actually went up to his history professor, who claimed to have done that himself, but for just a few seconds, the things had changed. And there is a lot of precedent for that in the paranormal world. There are these ladies. I don't remember the entire story, but these ladies went back to a very, very old village somewhere in Germany, and they said for an instant or two, they were back 100 years ago. They could hear the clip clop of horses. They could see the gas lights in the room, and stuff like that. And it's like kind of like what you call a time slip. You're kind of going back in time for a few moments. And there are several precedents, for that. The older the area, the better the chance, for that to happen. And I think that even the professor had mentioned that, possibility too. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was one of my all-time favorite movies, and also because Christopher Reeve, was Superman, and his name was Christopher Reeve, and the other guy was George Reeves. Isn't that kind of crazy?
Yeah, George Reeves was the one that was on like the original 1950s something TV series of Superman.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just amazing that was such a coincidence. And there really hasn't been a decent one since then in my eyes, except the one that did Smallville. I don't know if you ever watched Smallville.
Bits and pieces. Yeah.
The guy Tom Welling actually got Christopher Reeve's approval to that. To doing that, and Christopher actually showed up as somebody that was watching Clark Kent from afar for a long time. He showed up in his wheelchair and everything, and it was one of the last things he did as far as acting goes.
Right. Yeah, I could never understand, how. Yeah, going back to the original Superman from the 1950s, which he was my hero, by the way. How Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, and them could never tell the difference between Clark Kent and Superman. It's just a difference of just a pair of glasses. And I mean, the voice is still there. I mean, of course, Clark Kent acted like he was always scared all the time, and passing out or running away. Yeah, I got a chance to see that house a couple of times. I mean, I wish I could have gotten closer. There was really no place to park, so I did get a couple of pictures quickly out of the window of the car. We kind of stopped there for a few moments, and So a lot of these places that we went to, I won't say all of them, but a lot of them were just photo shoots that we went to real quick because, of course, we went to the Hollywood sign because we had to get a
I
picture
saw
of
that.
the sign.
That has to be a must
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
anybody that's never been to California.
I mean, there's actually a trail that you can take that you can park and come around the sign and get close to the H. Now, the H is where the actress Peggy Entwistle, who was a distraught actress because she couldn't get any jobs in Hollywood. She jumped from the H. At that time, it was called Hollywood Land. They had LAND after it, and then later on they just made it Hollywood. And there you go. And she jumped from the H, and committed suicide. And people, say that strange things happen over there, by the Hollywood sign, especially the letter H. But as you can see, if you were traveling, from the top, just trying to get down there, I mean, it's a good hike, and I might have been able to do it, but I don't know. It would, and you can't get around. They say you can't get around to the front, so you would only be able to get to the back. And you still have to go and get this frontal view of it, in a picture of you by the Hollywood sign.
It makes me wonder because I've seen this. I don't want to give away too much to my fans about stuff that I watch, but I used to, because I didn't have much time, back in the 90s when I was suffering the leukemia. I watched whatever was on TV that looked interesting, and there happened to be a show on before, a vampire show that used to be famous back in the day. So I used to watch that, and it was called 90210.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Beverly Hills 210. Uh-huh.
When they graduated, it makes me wonder how many times this thing was vandalized. And I use that word because that's basically, in a nutshell, what it was. Change that. How they somehow managed to change it so it said, like, they're so that their class was there, like our graduating class was here. Somehow they managed to change the Hollywood sign. I wonder how many times that was done for real.
I don't know. But I tell you what, it's very hard to get much closer than this unless you want to walk down some trails, park your car all the way down these hills, because these hills just wind up. And you find
back in my younger days, I would have attempted it.
Yeah. Oh, me too.
Because I was an avid cliff climber.
Okay.
I free climbed cliffs around the area. So I had very good balance in my younger days.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore.
Well, I mean, the way we found this is you Google this last house on Mulholland Drive. And you literally come to the last house, and there's two houses side by side, and they got these big, huge, 10-foot tall security metal gates. And of course, there's always somebody out there watching because they don't want anybody parking in front of the gates. They call the police right away. They tow the car. So we kind of went down the hill a little bit. We found kind of like a little pull off, and that's where we got those pictures from. I mean, you could have gotten closer if you wanted to find a way to get down those hiking trails, but they are very strenuous. And like I say, some people park all the way down this snaky road, and then they walk up and down the hill just to get to where this sign was. Where you see these pictures, and then they get even closer by going on these hiking trails. Of course, the ones I saw were in their 20s. I mean, geez, if I was in my 20s, definitely I'd be doing
it too.
But I'm 71, so I mean, it's not like I'm a spring chicken anymore. So I'll tell you another thing that we really it was really strenuous for me. We were in a place called Presidio Park in San Diego, and they had
saw live from there.
Yeah, there's basically a whole ton of places that were haunted, including the witch's house, and we found this place that was associated with a ghost of a deer called Lucy the Ghost Deer. And we had to go up this really steep incline. It was basically just, kind of like um, grass and so forth, and it wasn't on private property. And then you come up and you see this bench, and this bench has got the name Lucy, and then off to the right you kind of see these little stones, kind of in a circle, and this is the kind of the memorial for Lucy the deer, and which they've actually seen a ghostly deer around the area. So we looked all over trying to find this place until we finally were able to talk to some maintenance guy, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I know. I used to go up there when I was a teenager myself. Just go this way, and bam, there we are." So we went up there. That was pretty strenuous. I got up there and my heart was pounding like crazy. I had to take a break, but it was good. It was good aerobic exercise, I guess they would call it. So we went up there. That was one place, and then we also went. There's a place called the Serra Museum, Serra, Serra Museum, and we were waiting for it to open. We could have went in there, but everything in California, especially in San Diego, you got to pay to get in. Every single place. So this was haunted. They said that in the cloisters. If you ever know what a cloister is, it's kind of a cloister with kind of like little archways, and you kind of walk, and you. When I envision cloisters, I envision a series of monks walking down there with candles, chanting in Gregorian chant, and they see things along there. There's a big hill which I climbed. It was a bit strenuous, but I got to the top of the hill because there have been reports in the past of paranormal investigators going up there and doing EVP sessions with ghost boxes and things of that nature. And they had a voice of a sound like a young boy that says, "I jumped." And if he would have jumped from there, I mean, he definitely would have not survived. And I'm going up there and I'm, recording, and I'm walking around, and I had a ghost box and I have my obelisk. And so again, I have to review that. And I'm kind of walking like towards going back down the hill. And I see what to me looked like a marker or a monument that had fallen over. So as I started walking over there, I said, "Oh, wait a second, that's a guy in a sleeping bag. He's like a homeless person." So I quickly detoured around and got down the bottom of the hill. And I guess I didn't even wake the guy. He was like sound asleep. I mean, it was the temperature was very nice out there. It was mostly between 60 and 70 degrees. I mean, you couldn't ask for better weather. I mean, there was a bit of overcast, I think, the first day we came in. There was a little bit of drizzle one day, but most of the time it was beautiful out there. I hate to say it, but I actually kind of wanted to experience a little bit of an earthquake, just to say I was in an earthquake, because California has so many. I mean, not something that was going to, basically tear down buildings and so forth, but just to feel a bit of a tremor, I think would have been kind of cool, because, California is known for earthquakes more than probably any other state in the union.
Next,
We didn't get no tsunamis. We didn't get no typhoons.
They want a tidal wave or a tsunami.
Yeah, we didn't get any of that. But we went to a place called Linda Vista Hospital. In Linda Vista Hospital, I mean, I won't say the name of the group, but one of those paranormal groups on TV investigated that when it was still a hospital. It's in East LA. It's a very kind of a rough neighborhood at one time, where there was a lot of gang stabbings and shootings, trauma coming in. Well, I had a chance to investigate that, about a dozen years ago when my friend had a conference out there, and I didn't go. And now they converted it from a hospital into a senior living facility. But again, because of all the trauma, all the people dying, I wonder if those senior citizens are experiencing some paranormal stuff. I mean.
So now you're looking into that as your new retirement home?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't go in. I wanted to go in, but it had you said private property, no trespassing. You had to have yourself buzzed in. I wanted to get into some of these buildings, not only just to say I was inside, but maybe to get a brochure or something. Maybe I was saying, "Hey, I got a person that maybe wants to come in here and be, patient or something like that." It would be a lie, obviously.
Right.
But I have a collection of brochures of almost every place I've been to, especially haunted locations. And I wanted to get one from that, but I couldn't, unfortunately. So we just got a picture of that. And I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, it looks identical to when it was Linda Vista Hospital, except, they did, make some, changes inside and make them like patients' rooms and so forth, and assisted living and everything. But again, just because you change the building or so forth, or tear it down and build a new one,
doesn't mean the spirits are gone.
It's the property. It's what happened on that property. It's what they call stigmatized property. And I've come across it over and over and over again, even in the Chicagoland area, places that used to be, I can point to 3 or 4 just within 5 minutes of my house that used to be funeral homes that are now either a bar, a CarMax dealership, or a little like a cafe. And I wonder if those people that built on this property knew that it was a funeral home. Just about a block away, not even a block away, they just tore down a funeral home, completely tore it down, and they're going to build something on there. So I'm interested to see what they're going to build.
Oh, nice.
Well, Dale, it's at that time we got to call it.
All righty.
So what are you doing? What's up for you next? I mean, there's a lot of summer coming up yet.
Yeah, we're going to be making a trip to Gettysburg this year in August when my friend comes over from England. We're actually, as you know, we're going to be going with you
I'm looking forward to that one.
We're going to see the Valley of Kings Tiger Sanctuary, the Stevie Ray Vaughan crash site.
That's right. And I keep thinking it's just going to be Bray Road.
Yeah, absolutely.
I forget. I've been forgetting the other 2 places. That's right. We're going to check out the place we've been to, because that Valley of the Kings place is
it's awesome.
I mean, if you ever get in Wisconsin and get a chance to see this place, I recommend it. Just
my friend from England
it's a huge wildlife preserve, and it's just beautiful to be there.
My friend also wants to see the former home of Ed Gein.
Ed Gein.
Gein.
Depending on who you are, they pronounce different ways, but yeah, that's in Plainfield.
Yeah.
I want to go
over there.
That's one of the places I got to go to too this summer. I told my crew we are definitely getting out soon.
Yeah.
And that's one of the places that is on the to-do list, is to go to Plainfield.
Yeah.
For that specific purpose.
Yeah. Well, my friend's coming in for 3 weeks, and then every single day we're going to be doing something. So we are.
Well, that sounds like a blast.
Yeah.
So everybody, I guess you can look for me. I didn't even know the name of the show. There's a show tomorrow. You can look for it on Things Network. I'm sure it'll be posted when it goes live. I think it's 3:00 our time. I'm being interviewed by my friend Kate. So on her show tomorrow. So until then, stay safe. We'll see you next week. And remember, anything's possible. And thank you very much, Dale, for coming on.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Always a pleasure talking to you. So have fun. Thank you for watching, and have a safe and beautiful weekend.